guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk all about credit cards, and I know this is a very controversial topic, so I'm just going to be sharing my thoughts, my ideas about credit cards. And I definitely recommend, if you have experience with credit cards, whether it be a positive experience or a negative experience, leave it down below. Again, I think when it comes to budgeting, it's a very personal situation. Finances, money, it's all very personal, and so you have to really figure out what works best for you and your family. But it's always nice to get a couple different types of opinions and use those to weigh whether or not something will work for you. So again, we're going to talk all about credit cards, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about my journey with credit cards, because I think my journey is probably not the average experience. And so again, I just want to put my experience out there for you guys so that when you're making decisions, you know exactly what to expect, or one person's experience and how it ended up for them. So again, my experience has been very positive with credit cards. I still currently use credit cards. I have two credit cards as of right now. I have a Discover card and I also have a Target Red card. So I got my very first credit card when I turned 18. An aunt of mine made it a very big point that I got a credit card, and it was for one main reason. She thought it was really important that I started building my credit. Now keep in mind, most of my family, and I talked about this a little bit before, but most of my family have mounds of debt, and they have extremely low credit scores because of their misuse of debt. So as a young adult, I knew that one, I would never get myself into that situation because I saw what it was like to live that way. I mean, I lived that way as a child and as a teenager, and I never ever wanted to do that. So I was lucky enough that I got to see other people's mistakes and knew that I did not want to repeat those. So I got my first credit card. It was actually a Capital One card, and at that time I didn't try to apply for other cards or anything like that, but that credit card had a yearly fee, an annual fee of I think like $60 or so. So eventually, once I realized that it had a fee and that was ridiculous, that I didn't need to be paying a fee to use somebody else's credit card, I got rid of that credit card and I moved on to a Discover card, which is what I use now. So I currently have two credit cards. I have a Discover card, which I talked about before, and then I also have a Target Red card. Both of those are honestly just used for convenience. I love the Target Red card because we get 5% off of all of our Target purchases, and the Discover card, I get a lot of cash back and options like that, which I really, really love. So I've had a credit card since I turned 18. Jason has as well. And the way that we handle credit is we basically use our credit card just like a debit card. Anything that we need to buy, we use our credit card and we pay it off completely at the end of the month. I never, ever, ever have a balance rolling forward, because that's where they get you. That's where you start making them money, and I never ever wanted to be in a situation where I was paying interest on something. So again, I only purchased something if I knew I had the money for it. Again, just like if I was using my debit card and I was taking cash right out, I would never, you know, make my bank account go negative, so I would never use my credit card and buy something that I didn't have the money for. That was what my philosophy was as a 18-year-old, and that is my philosophy now. Again, we just use it as if it was cash and we are just buying what we need. I know that everybody's situations are different, and that's not the case for everybody. Again, this is my experience that I'm sharing with you guys, so just kind of keep that in mind. And I've gotten a lot of questions recently about how we handle the credit card. So if you guys are familiar with credit scores and all of that, a lot of your credit score revolves around some key factors. One of them is debt utilization. So my credit card for Discover becomes due, like it bills me for the month on the 17th of every single month. And so knowing that, and knowing that debt utilization is a key factor in my credit score, I make sure that on the 15th or on the 16th, I go through all of my expenses and make sure that they all line up, that there's no fraud or anything like that. And then I go ahead and pay it. That way, when it posts to all of the credit bureaus and all of that, it doesn't show that I have like a $3,000 debt to the credit card company. It shows that it was completely paid off and that we were not using the credit. Again, I care about my credit score because at some point we are going to want to purchase another house. And if you're a normal person like me and you don't have the cash to buy a house straight out, you're gonna need a mortgage. And a credit score is very important for a mortgage. So that is how I handle our credit card. Again, I just make sure that I check everything and I pay it off before we even get the statement, because I wanna make sure that my credit score is not having big dips. I've noticed in the past, and again, I'm not an expert at this at all, I just know what I've seen, and I've noticed that when I forget to do that, if I forget to pay it before like the 17th, that my credit score will go down quite a bit. And again, we're trying to buy a house, not actively right now, but we know that we're going to want to, so I don't want that to negatively affect that process. So I make sure that I do it before that date, and I actually have been putting a little reminder in my planner to remind myself to do that so I don't, you know, mess with my credit score. So that has been our experience so far. One thing that I want to say though when it comes to credit cards is it is very easy for some people to misuse credit cards. It's very easy for them to purchase things thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get this check, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that, and I'll be able to pay for it. If you're one of those people, if you're one of those people who tend to spend the money before you have it, if you're one of those people who tend to overspend because you don't feel it so much when it's not like cash, do not have a credit card. My purpose of this video is not to convince you that you should have a credit card or that you need it or whatever else. Again, I'm just sharing my opinion, my thoughts on it, and I really do appreciate the fact that people have issues with spending and with credit cards, and so I would never, ever, ever suggest for one of those people to have a credit card. But again, this is my experience, and if you have a good spending habit and you know that you're gonna treat it just like cash, then I think that it's okay to have a credit card. With that being said, credit cards are not for everybody. I wanted to talk about some pros and some cons about credit cards and what I've seen. And again, leave your experiences down below because I am one person and I would love to hear what you guys have to say. So one of the pros to having a credit card, and specifically our credit card, which is a Discover card, I will have a link down below if they have some type of like sign up bonus or anything. I've never looked into it, but I'll look into it for you guys. One of the pros is the cashback. And I know that Dave Ramsey and some other financial experts say the cashback's not worth it, you're gonna overspend, blah, blah, blah. Again, we are not going to overspend with our credit card because I feel every single transaction. I have been slowly becoming one of those people who don't want to spend money. And so when we go to the grocery store and spend a bunch of money, I feel it. I feel it, and I know that we are not spending more than we should be. So anyway, cashback is one of the most amazing aspects of having a credit card. And right now, in 2020, there should be no reason why you are paying any types of fees for a credit card. Like I said, I was paying like $60 a year. You should not be doing that. And there should be some type of rewards for having the credit card. So whether it be like airline miles or like getting gift certificates to restaurants or something like that, or cashback like we get, you should be getting something. So again, I know that those people, Dave Ramsey and other financial experts, say that it's not worth it. The cashback's not worth it. And it's easy to say that when you're a millionaire and $100 is not that big of a deal to you. But for us, we average between $50 and $100 every month for cashback. And that's a lot. $100 is significant for us because we have a family of 4. And $100 is like a week's worth of groceries for us. So again, keep in mind that if you are struggling with credit cards, then it's not worth it for you. But for people who can tolerate credit cards and they know how to use them, $100 is really nice. So I seriously appreciate that. And again, I'm not doing anything other than just spending money the way that I normally would spend them. The other nice thing about credit cards is that you get some really nice fraud protection. So recently, or not recently, a few months ago, I had a friend who signed up with a new bank, and I'm not gonna call out names or anything like that, but the bank basically gave her an extremely hard time about some fraud charges that were on her account. Basically, somebody used her card for a bunch of edible arrangements. I feel like this is like the story of everybody's life, because I've even had this happen to me, that like someone stole my information and bought stuff from edible arrangements. Anyway, she had all of these charges that were not charges that she made, and the bank was fighting with her. They wouldn't give her the money back. They were giving her the runaround. She had to jump through all of these loops to just prove that they're not her transactions, and it was extremely frustrating for her. And I totally get it, because it's your money and it's not fair when you get into a situation like that and there's no resolution, and it's a hard resolution to get to. One of the things about credit cards that I love, and especially I love with this Discover, is that I've never had that situation. I believe there's been 2 instances where my credit card information was stolen. Both of the times it was when I went out to a restaurant and one of the waiters or waitresses or somebody in contact with my card copied the information down and they used it for online transactions. I know that because during the time that I was visiting my sister in Florida one vacation, the person took my card. It took a while to get it back, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, all these transactions. So anyway, with Discover, as soon as I reported like, hey, there's all of this random stuff on my credit card that does not apply to me, they took it off completely. They did all the research. They made sure that I was updated about when I would get my money back, that I wouldn't have to pay it when my bill came due. They reassured me that they would take care of it. And I feel like that's one of the most amazing things about a credit card, is that first thing, it's not taking my actual money out of my account, which is really nice because I am really protective over that money. But also, I don't want to have to go out of my way to prove that it's not me. Like, I love that they do that for you. So again, that was one experience with one bank. I'm sure that there's banks out there, if you have a checking account or savings account with them and you run into that situation, that they would help you. But in my experience, Discover has never had a situation like that where they don't cover you. So I really, really enjoy that. Some of the cons about credit cards, and again, I really do suggest that if you have some pros, cons, experiences, leave them down below, because it's always nice to get somebody else's perspective. Some of the cons, and these are not things I've experienced, but just from like knowing credit cards and knowing how they work, I know this. The first thing is extremely high interest rates. I'm talking between 20 and 30%, which is insane. A lot of times people get suckered into like, oh, 0% interest for a year. So people keep these balances on their credit cards, and then what do you know? As soon as it becomes due, you don't have the money because you spent all of this money. You had an extremely high credit line and you spent money that you did not have. So now you're paying between 20 and 30% interest on $10,000, and it adds up every single month. It becomes a lot, and then you get into issues where you can't pay. So interest rates are definitely extremely, extremely high, and I definitely recommend that if you're going to be using a credit card, that you have the means to pay it off completely, because why are you going to pay somebody 20 or 30% to use their money? That makes no sense. No sense. Another con that there are with credit cards is that, again, people can overspend. So if that is an issue that you have, probably not the best idea. And then also, I feel like, especially in the situations I've seen personally, I've seen that credit card companies tend to give credit cards to people who probably should not be getting a credit card. I would definitely recommend, like when Macy is 18, I would probably do the same thing that my aunt did, and I'd be like, you need to get a credit card, you need to start building your credit. But for people who are already in a ton of debt and you're giving them $10,000 for a credit line for a credit card, probably not the best idea. So I feel like a lot of times they know they're gonna make money on you, and so even though you're probably not that qualified, they still give you something, and then you get suckered into paying all that interest and all of that. One of the things, and again, I probably should have looked down at my list while I was filming earlier, but one of the other pros about having a credit card, and again, I've talked about this before, is just that it helps build your credit. I've had aunts and uncles, again, who had no credit at all or very bad credit, and it makes buying houses and stuff like that really difficult. I also have an aunt and uncle on Jason's side who they're like, you know what, we're gonna go completely cash. We don't need credit cards, anything like that. And then when they sold their old house to downsize to like townhouse, they wanted to mortgage some of the cost. They couldn't get a mortgage because they had no credit history, because they weren't using credit cards. Just kind of keep in mind that there are lots of pros, there are lots of cons when it comes to credit cards. I've said this 100 times before, but if you have an issue with credit cards, if you overspend, if you are spending money on stuff that you don't have the money for, then don't use them. But there are real benefits to having a credit card, and I've experienced those very much. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Again, I know this is a very controversial topic, so I know that there's going to be some people who are like, you know what, I don't use credit cards at all. They're like the devil, no, no, no. And then there's going to be people who are like, I use them and I'm okay. Like, I get the cash back, I pay it off completely. I have no issues. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys my perspective about credit cards. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really, really, really do recommend, if you have any thoughts on credit cards, if you have any experience with credit cards, to leave it down below. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that your comment will help. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.